Imagine waking up one morning, checking your net worth, and thinking, wait a second, Warren Buffett beat me again? He's sitting at around 100+ billion, and I'm over here with a humble 2.5. Now before you laugh, stay with me, because this isn't really about Warren Buffett. It's about the invisible laws that shape success, the same laws Florence Scovel Shinn talked about, the laws of thought, belief, and alignment, and how they show up in our health, our fitness, and yes, even our money. See, I used to joke that Warren and I were practically twins, born in the same universe, breathing the same air, operating under the same rules of life, and yet, one tiny difference, he had just a little more cash. And that used to make me wonder, what was he doing that I wasn't? Was it luck? Was it timing? Was it some magic formula? But then I realized something powerful. Buffett wasn't following luck, he was following law, consistency, discipline, decisions aligned with a clear identity. And that's when it hit me. Those are the exact same things we talk about with fitness. Buffett didn't become wealthy because he made one big decision. He became wealthy because he made thousands of tiny ones, over and over again, even when nobody was watching. Just like you don't build muscle by going to the gym once, you build it by showing up, rep by rep, even on the days when you'd rather curl up with snacks and Netflix. Buffett invested money the way we're supposed to invest in our health, patiently, consistently, believing in the compound effect long before the results showed up. And here's the part Florence Scovel Shinn would have loved. She always said, you can't have anything you're not aligned with. You can't hold on to a body you don't believe you deserve. You can't live a healthy life if your inner dialogue is arguing for limitations. And you definitely can't attract abundance of energy, strength, wealth, if your inner world is full of doubt. Warren Buffett believed in the power of compounding, and he aligned every action with that belief. That's why his billions multiplied. Meanwhile, most of us are trying to compound results while compounding excuses at the same time. But the moment I understood this, something shifted. I stopped comparing myself to Warren's bank account and started comparing myself to Warren's mindset. The long game, the calm game, the faith-driven game, the game where small, steady steps become mountains moved, and suddenly the results, my health, my energy, my focus, started compounding too. Because Florence was right, your word is your wand, and if you wield it with intention, your life begins to align with your declarations. So the real reason Warren Buffett is richer than me isn't just strategy. It's consistency, alignment, belief, and the quiet power of daily investment. And the real question for all of us isn't why is he richer? It's where in my life am I ready to stop dipping my toe and start compounding for real? Because whether it's your fitness, your mindset, your habits, or your dreams, your results aren't determined by one big moment. They're created by the little choices you repeat with faith, discipline, and a sense of inevitability. And when you decide you're ready to align with the version of yourself who doesn't quit, doesn't rush, and doesn't doubt, your life will move in ways that feel almost magical. So today, let's make a new investment. Not in stocks, in ourselves, in the body we're building, in the energy we're calling in the future we're shaping rep by rep and thought by thought. As Florence would say, your perfect path is already prepared for you. All you have to do is walk it with courage. Consistency compounds results, and most people don't fully understand how quietly powerful that truth is. We hear the word consistency so often that it starts to lose its meaning, almost like background noise. But when you strip away the cliches and look at what consistency really does, it becomes almost mystical, almost magical in the way Florence Scovel Shinn described universal laws, an unseen force arranging your life in the direction of your repeated choices. Consistency isn't about perfection or grinding yourself into exhaustion. It's about tiny, aligned actions repeating themselves until they create momentum. And then that momentum quietly begins to shape your identity. When Warren Buffett puts money into an investment, he's not thinking about today or even next week. He's thinking about 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now. He's planting seeds that compound while the rest of the world is distracted by shortcuts, trends, and instant gratification. That's exactly what most people miss in their fitness journey. They want transformation without repetition, results without rhythm, breakthroughs without the boring parts that create them. If you lift a weight once, nothing happens. If you lift it repeatedly, the change is subtle, invisible at first, almost disappointing. But that's only because you're used to the idea that progress should be dramatic and fast. Consistency teaches you a different language. It shows you that small repetitions, when done daily or weekly, begin to shift your body, your habits, your energy, and eventually your entire sense of self. It's similar to the way compound interest works, tiny increments accumulating until they become something undeniable. Consistency operates like a law of nature that doesn't care about your mood, your excuses, or your temporary motivation. It only responds to what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally dream about. Florence Scovel Shinn often said that life responds to faith, and consistency is the practical expression of faith. When you take action again and again, even when nothing seems to be happening, you're declaring to the universe and to yourself that you believe in the outcome enough to keep showing up for it. There's a quiet power in repeating a behavior until it becomes part of your identity. The first time you wake up early to work out, you're forcing it. The 10th time, you're adjusting. The 100th time, you've become someone who doesn't negotiate with your goals. That identity shift is where compounding really begins. Because once your identity changes, your behavior becomes automatic instead of forced. You no longer rely on motivation because you've built a pattern that runs on its own momentum. Think about how Warren Buffett became Warren Buffett. Not through one brilliant move, but through thousands of steady, disciplined choices compounded over decades. Consistency doesn't give you fireworks, it gives you foundation. It gives you strength that doesn't crumble the moment life throws challenges your way. It makes you resilient, patient, grounded, and aligned with a vision that's bigger than the moment you're in. And here's the part most people underestimate. Consistency creates clarity. When you repeat an action long enough, you start to understand what works for you, what doesn't, what needs adjustment, and what needs to be released. But if you change direction every week, chasing the next trend, you never stay in one lane long enough to gain mastery. Mastery comes from repetition, not variety. You want a strong body? Repeat strength. You want discipline? Repeat routine. You want energy? Repeat habits that nourish your body instead of draining it. Every repetition sends a signal to your muscles, to your mind, to your subconscious, and even to the circumstances around you. It's like tapping on a locked door again and again until eventually something inside clicks open. Consistency also protects you from self-doubt because it gives you evidence. When you look back and see a pattern of showing up, even imperfectly, you build trust in yourself. That trust becomes fuel. It becomes confidence. It becomes the inner knowing that you are capable of creating your results, not through dramatic gestures, but through steady, intentional action. And just like compound interest, the effects don't show up linearly. They show up exponentially. You go from no progress to slow progress, to suddenly looking around and realizing you're living inside the results of every tiny choice you made. That's the miracle of consistency. It's subtle until it isn't. It's quiet until it becomes loud. It asks very little each day but gives back more than you can imagine over time. Belief shapes alignment and outcomes. And once you truly understand this, the entire way you approach your health, your fitness, your goals, even your daily decisions, begins to shift in the most profound way. Belief isn't just a comforting thought or a positive affirmation you whisper when you're feeling hopeful. Belief is a blueprint. It's a frequency. It's the silent architect of your actions, your habits, your expectations, and ultimately the results you live inside. When Florence Scovel Shinn talked about the power of the mind, she wasn't speaking metaphorically. She was pointing to a law, a spiritual physics, a cause and effect mechanism that is always operating whether we recognize it or not. And the truth is, your body listens to your beliefs just as much as your circumstances do. If you believe you struggle with discipline, your actions will align with that belief. If you believe you're someone who can't stay consistent, you'll sabotage yourself the moment momentum builds. If you believe change is hard, your mind will filter your experiences to confirm it. Belief is the lens that colors everything. You can have the perfect fitness plan, the perfect diet, the best coach, the best equipment, and still see no transformation if your beliefs aren't aligned with the identity you're trying to build. Because your subconscious mind is always working to maintain harmony between who you think you are and what you're experiencing. This means if you're trying to build a stronger, healthier version of yourself, but deep down, you still believe you're the person who quits, who starts over, who doesn't follow through, your actions will naturally drift back into the familiar patterns that match that belief. Alignment is the hidden code in all of this. When you believe you are capable, worthy, disciplined, strong, and committed, your body and your choices begin to fall into formation around that belief. Belief works like a magnet. It attracts behaviors that support it, and it repels behaviors that contradict it. Think of the difference between someone who believes they're meant to be healthy and someone who believes they're destined to struggle. They could both face the same temptation, the same fatigue, the same stress. But the person whose belief is aligned with health will naturally navigate those challenges differently. They might still feel the pull to skip the workout, but they'll also feel a deeper pull, an inner alignment, to maintain their identity. That alignment becomes stronger than excuses, stronger than old patterns, stronger even than temporary discomfort. Florence Scovel Shinn would say that the game of life is played with your words and your thoughts, and your beliefs are the definitive scorekeeper. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You rise to the level of your self-concept. If you believe in lack, you'll live in lack. If you believe in strength, you'll move towards strength. If you believe in health, you'll make choices that protect it. Belief shapes the path before you even take the first step. That's why some people transform their bodies in a way that looks effortless, not because the process is easy, but because their internal belief is so rooted, so unwavering, that the external becomes a natural reflection of the internal. Belief doesn't remove the challenge, it removes the resistance to the challenge. And here's the part so many people overlook. When your belief is aligned, the universe begins to rearrange itself around that alignment. You start noticing better opportunities, better guidance, better timing, better energy. The right resources flow towards you. The right ideas arrive. The right habits begin to feel natural instead of forced. It's not coincidence, it's coherence. Your inner world and outer world are matching frequencies. Your belief becomes a signal, and life responds. But when your belief is misaligned, everything becomes harder. You can say you want to get fit, but if you secretly believe you're not someone who deserves a strong, vibrant body, your choices will constantly contradict your intentions. That contradiction drains your energy. It creates confusion. It builds frustration. You'll feel like you're fighting yourself because in a very real way you are. Alignment is the remedy. When belief and behavior match, progress feels smoother, faster, more meaningful. Belief also shapes how you recover. When you're aligned, setbacks don't derail you. You don't see failure as final. You see it as feedback. You don't interpret challenges as signs to quit. You interpret them as invitations to refine. Belief gives you resiliency. It gives you patience. It gives you the quiet confidence that what you desire is already yours in the unseen, and your job is simply to stay aligned long enough for it to materialize. Florence would call it faith mixed with understanding. It's not blind hope. It's knowing. And once you know who you are and what you're moving toward, your outcomes begin to reflect that knowing in ways that feel almost supernatural. Small daily actions create big transformations. And the moment you truly grasp this, everything about the way you approach your health, your habits, and your goals begins to shift. We live in a world obsessed with dramatic before and after moments, sudden breakthroughs, and instant turnarounds. But the truth is that transformation is rarely loud. It doesn't arrive in a lightning bolt of motivation or in one monumental choice. It lives in the quiet decisions you repeat every single day. The ones that feel so small, so ordinary, so almost insignificant, that you barely notice them stacking up. Yet those tiny actions, repeated with intention and faith, are the very bricks that build the strongest versions of ourselves. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote about the power of the seed, how one small thought or action aligned with belief has the potential to expand far beyond what you could ever imagine. That's exactly how daily habits work. They are seeds. And even when you don't see immediate results, the roots are forming beneath the surface where your eyes can't see. Think about how the body changes. Muscle doesn't grow because of one powerful workout. It grows from the repetition of movement, day after day, even when the gains are invisible. Fat doesn't melt because you ate clean once. It responds to the pattern of choices you build over time. Endurance doesn't improve because you ran 1 mile. It expands because you keep running, keep breathing, keep moving past the point where you once stopped. Small actions shape your body on a biological level, rewiring your muscles, your hormones, your metabolism, and your energy systems. But they also shape you mentally. Every time you choose the small action, the walk, the water, the stretch, the meal prep, the workout, the early bedtime, you cast a vote for the version of yourself you want to become. And the more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. People underestimate the power of tiny actions because they want fast results, but little choices compound in ways that feel almost magical. 1 glass of water doesn't change your life, but staying hydrated every day sharpens your mind, boosts your energy, improves your training, and strengthens your discipline. 1 healthy meal doesn't transform your body, but choosing nourishment each day begins to shift your cravings, your digestion, your mood, and your sense of control. 1 workout doesn't redefine you, but showing up consistently builds stamina, confidence, and momentum. Small actions are deceptively powerful because they slip under the radar of resistance. They're easy to do and easy not to do, and that's where the real battle happens. The future you create is determined not by the actions that feel inspiring, but by the small ones you do even when you're tired, distracted, unmotivated, or tempted to slip back into old patterns. Florence Scovel Shinn would say that every small action carries a vibration, a signal, a declaration to the universe that you are aligning yourself with what you desire. If you want health, every small healthy choice aligns you with health. If you want strength, every small strong action aligns you with strength. The universe meets you at the level of your consistency, not your occasional intensity. Those tiny daily actions are like whispers to your subconscious mind, reinforcing the truth that you are someone who takes care of themselves, someone who follows through, someone who invests in their future self. And the subconscious mind responds by making those actions easier, more natural, more automatic over time. What once required effort becomes habit, and what once felt unfamiliar becomes your new normal. Small daily actions also build trust in yourself. When you say you're going to do something and you follow through, even in micro ways, you strengthen the inner contract you have with yourself. That trust becomes confidence, and that confidence becomes momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in transformation because it makes progress feel inevitable. It turns discipline into flow and effort into ease. Before you know it, the person who once struggled to make small changes becomes someone who embraces them effortlessly, because the identity has shifted to match the behavior. Small actions also create ripple effects. 1 healthy decision leads to another. 1 energized morning leads to a more productive day. 1 good workout leads to better sleep. 1 step outside leads to mental clarity. These ripples accumulate, influencing every aspect of your life. Your relationships improve because you feel better. Your work improves because you're more focused. Your mood stabilizes because your body is balanced. Transformation isn't the result of a single grand gesture. It's the accumulation of small ripples building into a wave. The beauty of small daily actions is that they remove the pressure of perfection. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You don't have to sprint. You just have to move, slowly, steadily, faithfully. And as those small actions repeat, they begin to shape a future version of you that feels stronger, clearer, healthier, and more aligned with everything you've been seeking. Identity drives discipline, and once you understand this, everything about the way you pursue your goals, build your habits, and shape your future begins to transform from the inside out. Most people think discipline is about willpower, forcing yourself to do what you don't want to do, pushing through resistance, and muscling your way into better behavior. But discipline isn't born from pressure, it's born from identity. You behave like the person you believe yourself to be. You follow through on the patterns that match the image you hold of yourself in your mind. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that your word, your belief, your mental picture is the mold from which your life is poured. When you see yourself differently, you act differently. When you identify as someone strong, consistent, and capable, your actions naturally follow that identity without requiring the same level of struggle or negotiation. The moment your identity shifts, discipline becomes an expression of who you are, not a battle against who you've been. Think about the difference between someone who says, "I'm trying to get healthy," and someone who says, "I am a healthy person." Those are two completely different realities. The first is effort-based. The second is identity-based. The first is fragile and dependent on motivation. The second is sturdy and rooted. When someone identifies as a healthy person, turning down junk food isn't an act of discipline, it's simply who they are. When someone identifies as an athlete, going to the gym isn't a question, it's part of their rhythm. When someone identifies as disciplined, they don't have to fight with themselves to follow through. They follow through because not doing so would contradict their sense of self. This is why some people can transform their lives so dramatically. They stop trying to build habits on top of an old identity, and instead create an identity that automatically produces the habits they want. Identity is the foundation, and discipline is the structure that rises from it. But when discipline is not aligned with identity, everything feels like a struggle. You can force yourself to go to the gym for a while, you can push yourself to eat clean for a little bit, you can ride the wave of motivation for a few weeks, but eventually, the old identity pulls you back like gravity. If you see yourself as someone who always falls off, you will fall off. If you see yourself as someone who starts strong but never finishes, you will replay that pattern. Identity repeats itself because the subconscious mind seeks consistency, not with your goals, but with your self-concept. Florence Scovel Shinn said that your world reflects your inner beliefs, and identity is the deepest belief of all. This is why becoming the version of yourself you want to be begins not with massive action, but with internal alignment. You begin telling a new story about yourself. You begin seeing yourself differently. You begin speaking words that affirm who you are becoming instead of who you've been. When you tell yourself, "I'm a person who takes care of my body," your actions begin to match that declaration. When you say, "I'm someone who finishes what I start," your behavior starts supporting that truth. Identity rewires your choices in the same way a thermostat resets a room. If the temperature drops too low, the thermostat kicks in. If your behavior drops below the standard of your identity, your mind pushes you back into alignment. That is the real power behind discipline. It's not forcing yourself, it's correcting yourself. Identity-driven discipline feels different. It comes with less resistance, less self-doubt, less emotional friction. You don't need to hype yourself up. You don't need constant reminders. You don't need to negotiate with your excuses. You simply act in alignment with who you believe you are. And the more you act in alignment, the stronger that identity becomes. It's a loop. Identity shapes action, action reinforces identity, and the cycle continues until the behavior becomes effortless. This is why fitness transformations are often emotional and spiritual as much as they are physical. As you follow through on your daily habits, your workouts, your meals, your rest, your movement, you begin to build a different relationship with yourself. You stop seeing yourself as someone who struggles and start seeing yourself as someone who succeeds, someone who shows up, someone who honors their commitments. That shift is powerful. It changes the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you make decisions. Discipline stops being a chore and becomes a natural expression of your character. Identity is the invisible engine behind your actions. When you consciously choose the identity you want, healthy, strong, disciplined, committed, you begin to reshape your future from the inside out. Because in the end, you are not chasing discipline. You are becoming the person for whom discipline is simply the way of being. Your inner dialogue determines your direction, and understanding this can completely transform the way you approach your life, your goals, and your health. Most people underestimate the power of the constant conversation happening in their mind. We think it's just noise, background chatter, or harmless self-talk, but it is far more powerful than we give it credit for. Every thought you think, every phrase you repeat, every judgment you pass on yourself is a signal that shapes your decisions, your behaviors, and the energy you bring to each moment. Florence Scovel Shinn spoke extensively about the power of the word and the thought as creative forces, emphasizing that what we repeatedly declare in our minds and out loud begins to manifest in our outer world. Your inner dialogue acts like a compass, directing your choices toward or away from the results you desire. If your thoughts are rooted in doubt, hesitation, or fear, your path will naturally curve toward limitation. If your dialogue is rooted in faith, confidence, and clarity, your path begins to open in ways that align with your intentions. Many people fail to see the connection between their inner dialogue and their outcomes because they focus solely on external strategies, plans, or actions. They think that success, fitness, or transformation is about doing more or working harder, without realizing that the inner narrative is the true engine behind what you do. If you constantly tell yourself, "I can't stick to a routine or I'll never be disciplined," you are programming your mind to justify every act of avoidance or inconsistency. You will find reasons to quit, skip workouts, eat poorly, or procrastinate, and it will all feel natural because your inner dialogue has already given you permission. Conversely, when you cultivate a dialogue that reinforces strength, resilience, and possibility, you create a foundation for aligned action. Your subconscious mind begins to support the reality you are willing to believe in, and over time, your outer world begins to reflect your inner narrative. Inner dialogue shapes not only decisions but also perception. When you speak negatively to yourself, you distort how you interpret experiences. A small setback in your fitness routine becomes proof that you're incapable, when in reality it's just a momentary detour. A missed meal plan or skipped session becomes evidence of failure, when in truth it's an opportunity to course correct. On the other hand, positive and empowering inner dialogue reframes challenges as opportunities. You start seeing difficulties as feedback rather than judgment, growth rather than limitation. Your direction is then guided by possibility instead of fear. Florence Scovel Shinn emphasized that the words you speak and think are seeds. They grow into circumstances, behaviors, and experiences, and the quality of your inner dialogue determines the quality of the life that unfolds. Your inner dialogue also influences your emotional state, which in turn shapes your actions. Thoughts generate emotions, emotions fuel behavior, and behavior creates results. If your mind is filled with doubt, self-criticism, or anxiety, your energy will be scattered and your actions misaligned. Motivation falters because the emotional fuel is weak or negative. On the contrary, when your dialogue is encouraging, affirming, and oriented toward possibility, it generates emotional energy that propels you forward. You will notice yourself naturally making better choices, staying consistent, and showing up for your goals with less effort. This isn't magic. It's the law of mind manifesting as life. Your inner voice either empowers or limits you, and the direction you travel is determined by which voice you choose to follow most consistently. Another aspect of inner dialogue is that it defines your belief system, which then defines the opportunities you recognize. A person whose inner voice constantly doubts themselves may overlook possibilities that are obvious to someone whose inner dialogue affirms capacity and readiness. The stories you tell yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, and what is possible create invisible boundaries that shape the decisions you make each day. By consciously curating your inner dialogue to align with your desired outcomes, you expand your perception and increase your capacity to recognize and act on opportunities. The mind responds to what it believes to be true, not to what is theoretically possible. Therefore, mastering your inner dialogue is mastering the steering wheel of your life. Inner dialogue also dictates persistence and resilience. When challenges arise, the words you tell yourself determine whether you view the obstacle as a dead end or a stepping stone. A self-limiting inner dialogue amplifies resistance, magnifies discomfort, and fosters excuses. An empowering dialogue, however, reframes setbacks, fuels problem-solving, and keeps you moving forward. This is why some people seem to have unshakable determination. They have trained their inner voice to speak the language of possibility, commitment, and faith. Over time, this becomes automatic, guiding them effortlessly through trials and maintaining their course toward transformation. Finally, inner dialogue shapes identity. The story you tell yourself about who you are and who you can be reinforces the version of yourself that will act consistently. If your inner voice repeatedly asserts, "I am disciplined, I am strong, I am capable," you begin to embody that identity in your actions and your habits. Conversely, if your inner dialogue is dominated by "I can't, I'm not, I'll never," you reinforce the limitations that keep you from reaching your potential. By consciously directing your inner dialogue, you are essentially scripting your own destiny, defining the trajectory of your life, and aligning your choices with the results you truly desire.